So I recently watched a YouTube video about the movie Mad Max Fury Road. It was the Comic-Con trailer, which is a really good trailer, by the way. But this made YouTube decide that all I ever want to watch is Mad Max videos. And, well, to their credit, that's right. But one video it recommended to me was Everything Wrong with Mad Max Fury Road by a channel called CinemaSins. Now, I've never watched a video by CinemaSins before, but I watched this one, and the first thing I noticed was that their audio seems a little weird.
My name is Max. My world is fire and blood.
And then they complain about Tom Hardy sounding unintelligible.
Also, Tom Hardy is forced to speak unintelligibly cliché.
And I thought, that's odd. I don't remember him sounding like that in the actual movie, so I went and checked.
My name is Max. My world is fire and blood. My name is Max. My world is fire and blood. I am the one who runs from both the living and the dead. I am the one who runs from both the living and the dead.
Now, I don't know if this is something CinemaSins does for all of their videos, but, you know, it's kind of unfair to edit the audio and then complain about it sounding unintelligible. So I thought, whatever, I'll watch the rest of the video, and holy shit, these guys are wrong about nearly everything. I don't understand it. Is it a joke that I'm not getting? Is it like their gimmick? Like, we're CinemaSins, we get everything wrong on purpose? I don't know. But I'll be honest, the video annoyed me. It annoyed me that they were frequently wrong in very lazy ways. It annoyed me that they often edited the footage to obscure the fact that they were incorrect in a point they were making. And it annoyed me enough to make this video.
Max is a dick to two-headed lizard things.
Max isn't being a dick to the lizard. He doesn't stand on it because he thinks it's funny or whatever. He actually eats the lizard in the next shot.
These cars made no sound until they made an appearance in the film.
This isn't a mistake. The cars are supposed to surprise the audience, and the sudden roar of the engine is a contrast to the silence of the desert. If you watch the full scene, that's a lot more apparent.
Tattoo instructions.
So this is one of the weirder types of sins that CinemaSins like to do. They just say what is happening on the screen and then give the movie a sin. I don't get it. They do it all the time. Here's another one.
Angry and impotent machine gun fire.
What's that? That's just what was happening. What's wrong with that? Is that meant to be bad?
After patiently letting them tattoo him for hours, Max finally breaks at the mere distant idea of being branded.
The guy's got the brand right there in front of Max's face. How is that the mere distant idea of being branded? The branding is imminent.
Why are all these guys bald and painted white? Movie has zero interest in explaining.
So the reason the movie never tells us why these guys are bald and painted white is because it doesn't really matter. What matters is that they're all part of a cult and they all look the same. They could paint themselves red or blue, and the effect would be the same. At a stretch, you could say that they paint themselves white because Joe needs that white powder blown on himself to stop from getting sick or whatever that was. But that's just guessing. The real reason the movie doesn't get bogged down in a lot of unnecessary exposition is that it's really, really good.
Wait, when did these guys get crane hook pulling hooks? Did they know they need them while they were mindlessly chasing after Max?
Or maybe they just keep it behind that door because that's where they need to use it to grab the crane hook. In fact, you can actually see the hooks behind the door in a previous shot.
Okay, first of all, how is the region's water somehow located and contained a dozen stories up on a rock thingy? Doesn't this defy all science and gravity knowledge?
Well, since the water's coming out of pipes, I think it's safe to assume that it's being pumped there from somewhere else. It's safe to assume this from now all the way until a later scene when the movie just tells you how the water gets there.
Where does the water come from?
He pumps it up from deep in the earth.
Second of all, this is the least efficient water gifting system ever invented. I realize he's a dickhead, but he's literally wasting 90% of the water he's releasing right now.
Okay, so Joe is wasting the water on purpose. This scene is meant to show us that he's cruel, he's a tyrant, he's got no respect for the people who depend on him to live, and no respect for water, and this is spelled out quite explicitly in Joe's dialogue in the scene.
Do not, my friends, become addicted to water. It will take hold of you, and you will resent its absence.
The point of this scene is to establish Joe as the antagonist, and that really wouldn't work for the audience if they saw him being a kind and considerate person.
Your produce ain't going to Gastown.
Why didn't Furiosa wait until she was completely out of view before she made that turn?
If you watch literally the next 5 seconds of the movie, you get to see through that telescope, and you can see all the way to Gastown from Joe's Citadel.
Whoa, this society of criminal assholes takes one of the few universal donors they come across and straps him to the spiky front of a war vehicle headed into battle, because why again?
Okay, so first of all, there's absolutely no indication in the film how many universal donors these guys have. They might have a dozen of them, all tied up in cages back at the Citadel. Who knows? Second of all, they're all crazy, and it would be completely in character for them to do something as irrational as tie one of their universal donors to the front of a car. Max is specifically there, though, to give blood to Nux, and the shot makes this very clear. It follows the tube from Max's neck, down the chain, and into Nux's arm.
These flames would definitely have already killed this back-riding asshole, if only due to wind. Not to mention how hot all the metal he's touching would be.
If you watch the full shot, you can see that the flames have only been on for about 1 second. He's positioned in front of them, and the wind is blowing them backwards away from him.
This porcupine car is useful only if attacked by stabbable, flesh-based human things. Otherwise, just throw a gasoline water balloon at it and set the fire. I mean, right?
How many times do we see one person jump from a moving vehicle onto another in this film? It seems like defending yourself against stabbable, flesh-based human things would be a priority.
This semi is able to drive close enough to a sand lightning tornado to push this other nearby vehicle into oblivion, without somehow getting sucked into the tornado itself.
So I had no idea about this at all. So I went on Google, I read a few articles, I did a few hours of research, and it turns out that big semi-trucks, they're heavier than cars. Cars are a lot smaller.
Also, since these women were all locked up in a harem vault, why was there ever a need for such things?
Well, the women were all locked up in the vault, and then they escaped. So, one example, for an instance, of such things being needed, at least in Joe's mind, is the events that are currently occurring in the film.
How the f*** did these assholes find them? They just went through a sandstorm where everybody who chased them either died or got knocked unconscious. What kind of tracks did they leave that led them here?
They haven't left any tracks because they actually haven't moved. If you remember, when Max wakes up at the crash site, he can see the war rig from where he is, implying that no one's really went very far. All that's changed is that the storm has begun to lift.
You know, just in case I'm hanging around outside my truck with no weapons, I've got this hide-a-gun thing here in case of emergencies.
For instance, an emergency like right now when I'm being attacked outside the truck. I mean, Furiosa has hidden guns all over the truck. What's the problem with having one on the outside?
That's the second time since he took possession of this gun that he's fired 3 shots to stop someone in their tracks. How many does he have left? And why is he so f***ing wasteful of the precious few bullets he has? Does he need to fire 3 times as a warning twice?
Okay, so Max was run off the road, taken prisoner, forcibly tattooed, locked in a cage, tied to the front of a car. He was in another car crash, and then he was just in a fight. And he's a little bit sort of, I guess he's irrational. Maybe he's a little bit, he's you know.
Of all the legs you had to shoot, that one was attached to his favorite.
What, are you going to tell him Max was the one responsible for it? Why would you do that? And why is he in any more danger than he was in already? Such an odd thing to say.
Okay, so initially, Max didn't want to let Furiosa and the wives into the truck, and he was going to just wait and hand them over to Joe in exchange for his freedom.
So we wait.
Then Furiosa hops onto the truck and tries to convince Max to let them in.
You're relying on the gratitude of a very bad man. You've already damaged one of his wives. How grateful do you think he's gonna be?
So yes, the wives are going to tell Joe. Max was the one responsible for it. It's a threat. He's in danger because the wives are saying, if you hand us over, we'll tell Joe you shot one of us and he'll kill you.
I'll go.
Yeah, but don't you now leave all the women alone up here with all those weapons you meticulously took out of their reach a minute ago?
Yeah, how stupid is Max for leaving all the guns in the cab? I mean, if it were me, I'd probably put the guns in some sort of bag and then take that bag with me when I left the cab.
Luckily, Nux has a soft sand dune to land on when pushed out of a speeding war machine.
They're in the desert. What the fuck else is he supposed to land on?
Whatever you do, you can't be seen. I'm supposed to be alone.
Didn't you just say...
I need you here. You may have to drive the rig.
Those sound like contradictory statements.
They're not contradictory. Furios is saying, stay here, but stay out of sight, which is exactly what Max does.
Lots of gunfire at this mostly fuel-carrying big rig result in a bunch of ricochets.
So if CinemaSins had been paying attention to the film, they'd know that the tank itself is actually filled with milk.
What is this?
It's mother's milk.
At the start of the movie, Furiosa was supposed to go to Gastown to trade. Why would she be delivering a shipment of fuel to somewhere called Gastown?
Guy who has dedicated his entire life to impressing Joe gives up totally and joins the good guys because the power of sand boners is super strong.
So Nux has dedicated his entire life to impressing Joe, and then he completely fails in front of Joe, and Joe rejects him.
He saw it. He saw it all.
This is the real reason that he changes sides, not whatever the hell a sand boner is supposed to be.
This movie makes it seem like they drive way further than a semi should be able to drive on one tank of gas.
So it's actually possible for semi-trucks to drive for hundreds of miles on one tank of gas. Now, there's nothing wrong with not knowing that, but remember, CinemaSins think that the war rig is filled with fuel.
Lots of gunfire at this mostly fuel-carrying big rig result in a bunch of ricochets. One tank of gas. Mostly fuel-carrying big rig. Those sound like contradictory statements. Lead cars explode and the rest of the convoy immediately stops, instead of going around or avoiding the semi's tracks altogether. I mean, you guys do realize there are no boundaries keeping you from going left or right, right?
So this scene is set in a swamp, and the reason that the cars can't just drive around is because they will sink into the swamp.
Tiny Tree has the ability to withstand... What was it, Furiosa?
You're sitting on 2,000 horsepower of nitro-boosted war machine.
Sounds like a vehicle that needs that kind of power is probably super heavy.
The tree doesn't withstand the weight of the truck. It gets torn out of the ground and falls over. Not only that, the shot CinemaSins used to complain about it actually shows it falling over.
Tiny Tree has the ability to withstand... What was it, Furiosa? Without somehow getting sucked into the tornado itself. Sounds like a vehicle that needs that kind of power is probably super heavy. Those sound like contradictory statements. Truck that was just struggling to drive in this on a flat surface is suddenly climbing sand hills with ease.
Okay, so the flat surface is actually a swamp, and the reason that the truck can drive uphill is because it's driving to higher ground that's drier than the swamp. I don't think CinemaSins know what a swamp is.
There's high ground just beyond that thing.
He means the tree.
Yeah, tree.
Why the hell is this lookout naked? Is there one good reason for that? I'm not complaining, I'm just trying to figure out how that benefits the cause.
So this lookout isn't actually a lookout. She's a trap. Max spots this and comments on it as the war rig is driving up to the tower.
That's bait.
Max's flashbacks don't matter much to me or the film.
So the flashbacks are actually the key to understanding Max's character in the film. At the beginning, he's haunted by these visions who say things like, you let us die, where were you, Max, you promised to help us. Then later on, when Max is watching Furiosa drive away across the salt flats, he hears one of these voices again.
Where are you?
And he sees a vision of somebody walking out into the desert, and this is what changes his mind and makes him decide to help Furiosa, because he sees it as a way to redeem himself for all the people that he hasn't helped in his past.
At least that way, you know, we might be able to... together. Come across some kind of redemption.
There's also a flash forward, or a premonition, I guess, that's quite interesting.
You promised to help us.
But I guess none of that actually matters, CinemaSins. All completely, totally random, pointless decisions made for no reason.
So, look, I totally agree that their decision to go back to the Citadel is something they needed to do, but couldn't they have tried to be a little bit more discreet when they drove back the other way? Maybe try to avoid being seen? Maybe even, I don't know, take a circular route?
They don't just want to go back to the Citadel, they have to beat Joe back to the Citadel to take it, and it's going to take weeks to take a circular route, because the only direct path is back where they came.
It'll take 2 weeks to skirt the wall of mountains.
No. I suggest we go back the same way we came. Through the canyon.
Now, in some respects, I completely sympathise with CinemaSins. It is not easy to do what they do. You have to watch the entire movie. Got to watch all of it. You got to pay attention to all the characters. All these different characters all saying things and doing things.
These Pogo assassins are really cool. Why didn't they have these things earlier when they attacked the war rig?
If you'd been watching the movie, you'd know that the polecats all got trapped at the canyon pass when the pass gets blocked, and they haven't had an opportunity to attack the war rig until they caught up with it, which is right now.
Wait, are you sure? Is she strong enough to catch a falling Tom Hardy with one hand while driving this massive war machine?
Well, since Furiosa catches Max with a robotic arm, it doesn't really matter if she's strong enough. All that matters is if her arm is attached to her tightly enough. Also, if you look, you can see that Furiosa isn't actually the only character to catch Max, because one of the wives is holding his other leg.
Good thing Poe left his jacket behind for no reason, so that Finn could pick it up and be seen by BB-8 later.
If you watch the scene where Poe and Finn steal the TIE fighter, Poe takes his jacket off shortly before they take off, so it makes perfect sense for it to still be in the TIE fighter.